And it's been a journey, I guess, discovering what wealth is. Still don't really know. For me personally, I think that broad definition of wealth is not about the Rolex, the Bentley, or the materialistic. It's not so much money driven as it is like having access to funds to make your life a bit more meaningful. So like spending time with family, investing in the right businesses, taking on projects that you're passionate about. Like everyone always says, do what you love and you'll succeed. But money often does tend to get in the way of a lot of people doing what they love. And so my definition of wealthy people is that they actually have a bit more of the luxury to be able to do those things. That's a wealthy person in my eyes. There have been many nights thinking, why am I doing this? Like I could just go back and get a job, have a very stable income, not have to worry about payday, not have to worry about the creditors, and not have to worry about all the stuff that we worry about on a day-to-day basis. Then I wake up and I'm like, you know what? It's not so bad.
Yeah, that's right.
You had a lot of fun time with him.
Yeah, totally. We spent a long time together now, working on this project.
How long has it been?
Well, I mean, we started really working on it. When we started the strategy, it was started 2019. I started that. So
wow, I didn't realise it had been so long.
5 years. Yeah.
yes. Well, in a sense, it started in 2017 when I was selling the IP of my gaming company.
That's right.
And that's when I met Ab.
Yeah.
And we kind of grew that relationship over a couple of years. And then in 2019, I really got heavily into the programmatic strategy that we'd been working on.
Yeah.
And then end of 2019, built the first version. And by mid 2020, we incorporated and realized that what we started with is not what we were wanting to, I don't know why we're talking about me. We ended up...
I'm good that at this age.
You just diverted. Maybe you should be the host. But yeah, we wanted to build this kind of futuristic Berkshire Hathaway and have spent the last 4 years kind of making small steps every single day to get there.
Yeah.
And in a sense, this podcast is a part of that because it's talking to people in careers and entrepreneurs that are building businesses or have built businesses and kind of hearing their stories. It's something that we spend a lot of time doing, especially if you're involved with AB, you know that you're going to meet interesting people and find out about them. So it was kind of his influence in a sense that made me think, we have these great conversations in this room where we learn a lot. We could just record them and the setting and the vibe is quite nice in here.
Totally.
It's
always,
been a while.
I've had this conversation with so many people. It's always like, imagine if we could record our conversation, but no one actually goes and starts a podcast. So that's good on you for actually going and doing it. Because everyone's like, it would be so cool to actually do it, but then they don't do it.
Yeah.
It's all about execution in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learn that every day. And then turning up the next day, even though if the execution didn't go too well.
Plan.
But that's kind of something that I wanted to chat to you about because you are an avid entrepreneur, right? And you've had a few ventures. Silky Otter is one of the premium cinemas in the country. You obviously had your adjacent businesses to that in the agency space. Mm-hmm. And then you've started some other projects. Mm-hmm. So you've got a long history. But I guess then what is it that drives you? What is the idea? What is wealth to you?
Cool, that's a loaded question because you went straight in there right from the get-go. Yeah, you're right. There's been a lot of projects along the last decade or so. And it's been a journey, I guess, discovering what wealth is.
Yeah.
Still don't really know.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I think that broad definition of wealth is not about the Rolex, the Bentley, or the materialistic. It's not so much money driven as it is like having access to funds to make your life a bit more meaningful. So like spending time with family, investing in the right businesses, taking on projects that are financially, there's reasoning to do it, but also that you're passionate about. Everyone always says the famous saying, do what you love and you'll succeed. But money often does tend to get in the way of a lot of people doing what they love. Because they're like, I need a paycheck.
Yeah.
I got a big mortgage to pay, or feed the kids, I got whatever your obligations are. So they don't get the luxury of doing that. And so my definition of, I suppose, wealthy people is that they actually have a bit more of the luxury to be able to do those things, spending the time with the family, the passion projects, and then using that money to make money. That's a wealthy person in my eyes. Hopefully one day that's where I'll be.
So what are you doing at the moment then to build that?
So like Charlie said, a lot of fingers and a lot of pies. Dates back to about 11, 12, nearly 12 years ago when I started my first business. I was working, good corporate job, getting pretty decent salary, but a good friend of mine, we'd always wanted to be in business together. He had just gotten this pretty big opportunity, and while I was working my job, realized that we could start something off to the side, and so I started that. It was just a bit of a let's see how it goes business.
Okay.
Weekends, after hours, that moonlight hustle. Did that, and then that kind of eventuated into a bit more of a stable, well, it grew a little bit, so I had to leave my job and actually take this on board full time. And then through the years, opportunities presented themselves. So Silky Otter was with a business partner of mine, Neil. He was the guy, I've known him for like nearly 20 years now. It's good friends. He's the Silky Otter man, so it was his idea right from the get-go. And we co-founded it together and started our first one in 2019. We'd been working on it for years prior to, but opened the first one in 2019. And through sort of those business networks and associations with people and opportunities that came, just then dabbled into another one, and then another one, and another one. And now any given day is different. One day we're selling movie tickets, the next day selling fried chicken burgers, the next day running an event for a corporate client, the next day working on a gaming company to hopefully go global. So there's always something that's exciting and different, and that's the day-to-day hustle.
How do you balance that? You've just talked about 4 different things, just in terms of like businesses, right? That's not all the other stuff making noise around you as well. So how do you balance that?
Look, honestly, it's a lot of really, 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 really talented people around me. Most of these businesses that I talked about, it's not like it's me. It's either there's a founder there, or there's a business partner, or there's a really solid team behind it. So for me, I've always played people to their strengths. So I'm like, I'm really good at this. I'll come in and I'll fill this gap, but then you take care of the rest of it.
Okay.
And so that, it works for me, dip in, dip out. As long as the other side of the table knows the expectation and we're working collaboratively together, it seems to work well. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
A lot of working late and weekends and all that, but having the right networks and associated people around you and trusting in them makes time a little bit easier to get back.
So how did you build those networks?
Oh gosh, things like these, to be completely honest with you. Just putting myself out there with good people. I can't really pinpoint a single strategy.
Okay.
Other than just take opportunities as they come. Go out for that coffee, go have lunch, go to those networking events that you get invited to. And then through the business, it's a small community in New Zealand. So generally, almost on a weekly basis, I'm being introduced to someone and I'm like, oh wait, you know Charlie, and Charlie knows Ab, and I went to school with such and such and so and so, and let's connect. And then that just, amplifies exponentially.
Okay. And so you mentioned one of your first businesses that you worked on, you worked with a close friend. How did you maintain your friendship?
Well, luckily we're still friends.
Yeah, that's what I mean though, because it doesn't always pan out that way, right?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give around that?
It's difficult. It's like a marriage. It truly is. Like, you end up yelling and cussing at each other and not seeing eye to eye. But as long as you kiss and make up, it always ends up working. Not that we kiss. So put it out there. It's fun. That's one of the things I talked about earlier, is doing what you love. It's also about working with people that you really enjoy their company. It doesn't come without its challenges, because like family, you fight and you get really frustrated because you love them.
Yeah.
But that's been, we've been in business now for over 10 years, and we still have our fights, and we still kiss and make up, and things are still good. My wife's actually my business partner in some of these businesses, so it's also quite unique dynamic. Yeah, because we're working and we live together, and it's family and work together, but we've just always found a way to make it work. It's again believing in people that you're working with and knowing their strengths. Like, she compliments me to the nth degree. So she stays out of my lane for the most parts. I stay out of her lane for the most parts, and where I'm falling over, she'll pick up, and vice versa.
Okay. So how do you choose the businesses that you want to get involved in? Is there a process?
Well, the ones that we started was passion. It was like, this is fun, this is exciting, let's get amongst it. The cinema business in particular, we just found we're avid moviegoers, we love movies. That's how I met Neil. We were working at the cinema together. I was making popcorn and he was cleaning the cinemas. So that was kind of a gap in the market that we identified that needed a little bit of innovation. We had this concept, Silky, Otter, these premium cinemas that we thought we could roll out on scale. So we dabbled into it. Luminary, my events business, was the same thing. It was just doing fun experiential activations, brand launches, things that were kind of out of the box and a bit more unique, not just cookie cutter stuff.
Yep.
Whereas some of the other businesses that I've ended up getting involved in was through people like founders of businesses that I believed in. These guys are masters at their craft. And I really thought that their product or their vision was super sound, and I offered to kind of add whatever ingredients to the recipe that I could, mostly in the commercial strategy side, and that's my background, more commerce, yeah. So I'd come in and go, look, you keep doing what you're doing, you're really good at it, but let me help with the business side of it. And whether that was an equity investment, a cash investment, or however that looked like, it was just more around, let me help you get to that next level. So a bit of both.
Yeah.
Passion project, something that I believed in, and also people, businesses that I'm like, you're doing an amazing thing, I believe in you, let's get together.
Mm. Where did you learn this? Like, how did you get the mindset that you've got? Is it the household you were brought up in? Is it the things that you were exposed to through your teens and your 20s? How did you get here?
Oh, that's loaded. Definitely not the household.
Okay.
My parents are very stable, get a good job, pay off your mortgage, live comfortably kind of people.
Yep.
So they hate what I'm doing every day. What are you up to? Yeah, no, I wasn't university, that's for dead certain. I've got, not much out of the university side of things. I think it's just hustle mentality. I think it's something that I've always grown up with. Looking back at my high school years and university, I was always just looking for an opportunity or something fun to dabble with. And I just enjoy working. Like, I just enjoy fast-paced activity, new, exciting. So there wasn't really a textbook or a single incident that kind of opened my eyes to this is what I do. Other than now, like even when Charlie introduced and was saying, oh, you're a serial entrepreneur, I still don't even think of myself as a serial entrepreneur. I'm just like, just the project came up and just stuck my finger in it, and now I'm here. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And so you've started a few businesses, got quite a bit of experience under your belt. What has been the biggest challenge you've faced today?
Biggest challenge across, I think the thing that's universally across all of them is just trying to identify what's going to happen next and sticking to that business plan. Mm-hmm. Like the last 5 years has been, or 4 years has been a roller coaster ride for the entire world and the economy. You have your best laid plans, and then global pandemic hits. Yep. And then you regroup, you re-strategize, and then inflation, recession, cost of living crisis. And then you re-strategize, and then something, God forbid, World War III happens. I don't know, but but it's just always trying to go, okay, here's my business strategy over the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and trying to stick to it. Then understanding that when you look retrospectively, some of the things that we wanted to do we haven't achieved, is it still part of that next phase of that plan? It's just been really, really challenging to figure out how do we stay on track when things are consistently pushing you off the plan that you had. It's been brutal.
Yeah,
it's been very brutal.
You know, cinema, events business, hospo. Those are all things that were heavily impacted through COVID, and then recession and that kind of thing too. So, what's some of the things that you've tried to do to maintain your momentum through that?
The resilience has been the biggest thing. Like honestly, just looking back over the last few years, that's what I'm saying. That you keep getting hit off track and then trying to get back onto it. That's sheer resilience. But we've taken just a common sense approach, restructuring in terms of your costs, looking at alternative methods to increase your gross margins. We haven't necessarily pivoted. I think in most of the businesses, if not all of them actually, the founders or the visionaries have always kind of stayed true to what the end result's going to be, aside from the macro or microeconomic factors. But so the goal has always been the same. It's just we've taken a slight deviation of how we end up getting there. Because it was always like, oh, that's fine if we did this, then we did this, then we did this, we'll be super successful. It wasn't that easy. So we've gone, okay, well, we're going to have to slightly turn to the left, then we'll go back onto the right. But it is those, cost efficiencies, it's pricing strategies, it's identifying who your high value clients are and who your low margin clients are. I wouldn't say textbook stuff, but personally, that's where my skill set is. It's commonsensical stuff to me. It's like if you just move these very simple levers, you end up seeing positive results.
Okay, so to someone who is maybe starting their first business, what would you encourage them to do to build that resilience?
I've got a lot of friends that are always like, oh, I want to start my own business and what have you. It's just get going, just start. There is no real, you could write as many business plans as you want, you could do as much research as you want, but really the nuts and bolts of it for me is just get going. Because you will just discover, oh, this worked and this didn't work. Then innovate, do it again. This worked, this didn't work, try it again. So it's really about just getting going.
Okay, and so the resilience piece around when it doesn't work, how would you support someone, or what would you suggest that they do to help them build that resilience? Because it's not an easy thing to build, right?
Well, that's why I tell a lot of my friends, don't do it. Stay in your job. You've got to be passionate about it. That's how resilience, for me anyway, that's how it's kind of prevailed. Because you got to enjoy what you're doing. You got to believe in the product or the vision, and you got to be having fun with the people around you. There's not really an easy thing to teach or to be able to master. It's just if you love what you're doing and you want to do it, it's just that belief. And so for me, like, there have been many, many nights thinking, why am I doing this? Like, I could just go back and get a job, have a very stable income, and not have to worry about payday, and not have to worry about the creditors, and not have to worry about all the stuff that we worry about on a day-to-day basis. But then I'm like, then I wake up, and I'm like, you know what? It's not so bad.
Actually,
You have a small win. You go out with a friend and you tell them about what you did last week. You're like, that's so cool. You're like, yeah, actually, it's not that bad after all. And you get this kind of boost of energy to do it again. You get hit, and then you got to get back to the resilience. But it's really just about, my experience anyway, those key things: loving what you do, loving the people that you do it with, and enjoying it.
So what kind of steps have you taken to bring, like, your family and your friends along with you on this ride? Is it something you've consciously done or chosen not to do specifically, or? Yeah, no. My entire history has been tainted with, not tainted, that's the wrong word, has been filled with family and friends through the business journey. Like I said, most of the businesses that I've gotten involved in one way, shape or form or the other has been with a friend. My sister was running one of the businesses for many years, doing an amazing job. My wife is my business partner. Some of my relatives, like in-laws and stuff, work within some of the businesses and help me out extensively. Like, I got a really busy weekend this weekend coming up, and my brother-in-law was like, I'll come down and I'll give you a hand. So it's really relying on for me, your friends and your family. It's not about excluding them, but it's also about knowing how to include them, because everybody has their strengths. Yes.
And so if you just want to work with a mate because he's a cool guy and, I really enjoy his company, and you try to get him to, I don't know, build you a strategy or do your marketing or whatever, and they're not good at that, that relationship's really going to get strained. But if you've got a good friend and he's a really good builder, he's a really good marketer, he's really good at the hospital business, hey, do you want to do this together? And that's been the way that I've managed to maintain positive relationships with a lot of my friends, and nurture relationships through colleagues that I'm like, a lot of my friends now have come through the business networks.
Okay. So you mentioned that you and your wife are co-business partners. Were you guys always on the same page in terms of that journey, or did she come to it later, or was there a discussion?
Yeah, I mean, we've been together we're high school sweethearts, so we've been together for a very long time. So we worked together when we were teenagers. Like we were working at the same supermarket together, and then we worked at the cinema together. Then when I started some of the businesses, she was working with me as well. We had kids along the way, so life got in the way quite a bit. She branched out though. She wanted to see if, she wanted to go work the corporate life, and she got a really good job, and she was kind of running that rat race for a little while. But recently, about a year ago, I decided, I like this. I like working. We like working together, and that was one of our conditions. Is like, she's not working for me. I'm not working for her. We're kind of doing it together. And so, we've always, for the last 15 odd years, have worked well together in the professional context, not just in our own businesses, but just working together. And so I guess it was destined almost.
Oh, that's so romantic.
I know.
Destined.
We can cut that for sure.
Brownie points. Brownie points.
Yeah. She'll be like, yes. So you guys, you mentioned you have children. So what would you like to teach them around building wealth? Like, what is the conversation there?
Yeah, it's hard, right? You've got 3 as well, I think. So it's trying to make sure that they're not spoiled and that they do value money and value the hard work that the parents are putting in. But you also, you want to give them all the stuff that you may not have had growing up. So there's just this very delicate balance. With our kids in particular, they see how hard I work. They see how hard their mother works. And we include them in, like, not that we're including them in the business meetings, but we include them in the conversations. We take them to the cinema and we tell them about how it was built. We take them to the office where we're working now, and on the weekends, if I've got some work to do, I'm not just going to leave them at home. We'll bring them in. I'll be doing my stuff. They'll be running around, playing around, because it's just immersing them in that environment. I still want them to have a good education. I still want them to choose their own path, but I just don't know what the future is going to look like with the introduction of AI, with just the way that the world's changing. I can't give them the same recipe or textbook that I had growing up, but I figure if they're just around, they'll figure it out.
They'll learn so much just by watching, right?
Yeah.
I follow, is it Keep the Change?
Yeah.
Luke's his name. And so he put on his Instagram recently around intergenerational wealth. Often by the time that money gets to the second generation, 70% of those people lose it. And by the time it gets to the third generation, of the 30% that survived, 90% of it's gone. So how do you then, is it just a financial thing in terms of intergenerational wealth, or do you think we need to expand our thoughts on what it might contain?
Culture in your generation, the wealth of, I guess, knowing where you came from can also be gone in a generation. I often think that, we kind of, and as entrepreneurs, we know it's not like fragile, we know that it's not stable. Being an entrepreneur, that things change pretty quickly. But I think that in a sense, if you think about family, you think it is something that's super solid, and it is in many ways, but also circumstance can change so quickly that where you came from can be lost. I think of my grandmother that was in Portugal, and today she's in the UK, obviously, very old, and kind of lost a lot of her language and lost a lot of her culture and, a bit of her where she came from, probably, just based on, obviously, where life took her.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the same with wealth, right? And it's so much harder to keep it if you didn't make it, I reckon.
Yeah.
100%. It's such a scary statistic. I didn't realize it was that bad.
It is scary.
But what you're saying is bang on. That's the whole, don't want to spoil them because then they don't value it and then they just piss it away almost. And how do you teach them not to? For us, me and my wife both kind of grew up in a similar class, let's call it, right? So we weren't well-to-do and we weren't, on the bones of our ass, kind of middle class, let's call it. And so we very much share the same values, and we're trying to, instill those values into the kids. But hopefully, if we're successful and we make a bucket load of money, we've got to try teach them how to,
steward it.
That's a good
because
one.
we've never had that experience.
Yes.
We didn't inherit a bucket load of money, so I can't really tell them, invest it here and do that. And the world is so fragmented right now. What you guys are doing is impressive, because every day I'm like, just buy some crypto because that's the future. crypto's crashed. No, let's look at ETFs. And oh, actually, no, buy some property because, nothing goes wrong. Housing market crash. What do I do?
Yeah.
Take a bucket load of cash and store it in the backyard. Oh, wait, inflation.
Gold.
Yeah, I think I think it goes back though, like applying what you learn in business to your life, right? Like having a plan, because having a plan and knowing where you're at, like retroing kind of what is the current situation, like, even if it's not great, but just kind of thinking, okay, this is where we're at, and then having a plan that could be feasible, that takes you to a future that you want. And that's the same with business, a forecast and a balance sheet of some description and a position. And we have that as families, and often just knowing where you're at is really freeing. But it's always good to set out a plan of a future. Yeah. Even though you're never gonna that's never gonna work that way. Yeah. You're gonna go left, you're gonna go right. Yeah.
Like I said, just like business, it is. We have this objective, we have this goal, we know what we want them to be like, our kids and us later, but how we're going to get there?
Yeah. But also, like, our parents would have had ideas around how they wanted us to be, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm not like what they had necessarily planned, right? So then is the legacy, that resilience piece that you've talked about, is it trying to bring our kids up so that they are resilient, so that they can deal with whatever comes their way?
Yeah. Like, my kids are very resilient, especially when I tell them to do something. Maybe stubborn is the word I'm looking for. That's the hard thing as a parent, right? You don't want them to go through the struggle. I don't want them to have to be resilient because I don't want them to have to go through it. But that's also kind of what made us. And I don't know, am I passing that down even though I don't want them to go through the pain or, the challenges? But it is what makes you strong.
Yes.
It's a tough one.
Charlie's spoken about in other podcasts around how potentially if you hand them all this money, you're actually stealing the opportunity from them, from figuring it out for themselves and creating their own version of it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Stealing the opportunity to kind of get that achievement or whatever it is. And I guess my views on it are always evolving as well, because I'm like constantly thinking and refreshing, okay, is that what I really think, or is that what I think is working out well, right? You can have a view and then you find out, oh no, maybe that's actually not the right way. I kind of, and when you have 3 kids, you know that at least 2 of them are massively different, if not all 3.
Yes.
And I just did, yesterday I went to the student-led conference for my kids, and it was super interesting where each of them are at. And and academically, where they're at relative to their peers, and I already know where they, like, I know with my son, I've just got to let him do what he wants. Yeah. Because if I force him into anything, he won't engage anyway. And that was evident in the student-led conference because he didn't want to be there. He was like, he feels awkward about it, therefore he kind of shells up and he kind of goes inward, and I think he feels a bit awkward. And I was very much like him, not when I was a kid, and I didn't excel through school because, I don't know, unless it was athletics, because I had bad attendance, but other than the kind of circumstances I was in, I was quite anti-establishment, and he clearly is too, so it's like, how do I give him the skills that he needs to learn when he doesn't really see the point of learning them yet? Whereas my daughter, who's the middle child, she is by far the most difficult of the 3. And she is so far ahead.
Oh, really?
It's not even funny how far ahead she is. Like, over the last couple of months, she's basically been teaching herself to play the piano, and she's really good now. Wow. She's like silly smart, but really difficult, frankly, to parent. Yeah. And then my youngest is kind of the social butterfly that everyone just loves. Yeah. And she'll just smile and then things happen for her.
Yeah. My youngest is the same.
Me too. I think that must be a common trait.
And it's harsh, right? Because I'm so much harsher to the middle child, who has to end up doing all of the cleaning and tidying because when we send them to their room, because they share a room, the girls, who does all the tidying? It's her. Yeah. And who gets all the aggro? Probably the middle child.
Yeah.
And I think, and I guess what I find I'm thinking more is like, how do I give them more organic, intentional presence? of like teaching, not really teaching, but existing. And, you know,
It's hard though, right? As parents, like you've got so many balls that you juggle, and you want to do the right things, and you want to be fully present and that kind of thing. And I've got 3 kids too, and I definitely know if they all want attention all at the same time, how do you balance that?
And they're going through, I don't know what the age gaps are. I think we're kind of similar in our kids' age gaps, but it's also hard because when they're going through different stages of their lives, your parenting needs to be, you know, for the older one and for the youngest one at the same time. And you're like, am I doing a good job?
Yeah.
You never really
You're never going to know, right?
We'll see.
Yeah. But it's also like the way I parented, or my husband and I parented our oldest. We learned so much from that and what not to do. So our youngest is getting a very different version of us at that age.
Yeah. So true. So true. But like, also, I think, you know, that statistic that you talked about with intergenerational wealth is scary, but I've also seen a lot of people that I know personally who come from high net worth families or, you know, they've just had generational wealth, manage it really well. Okay. Like New Zealand, I think, does have quite a few, at least people that I know, who have managed that relationship and kept the wealth within the family and then passed it through, predominantly property, because New Zealand is historically, you know, property market. But I have seen it work, and where it works, that family unit's super strong.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you aspire to be, is like, if we can kind of build, like for me, the Almukhtar Trust and the association, and my brother and my sister and my wife's siblings, and then our kids, and so on and so forth.
That's a very Eastern philosophy, though.
It's true.
Right.
It is, yeah.
And your wife is not of Eastern
No,
heritage,
she's Kiwi.
so she's come into that and learned that. Because, you know, something that Helena and I talk about is the fact that Eastern philosophy is so much more of a family unit versus Western.
But even Māori philosophy is much more.
Well, that's, I guess so then, there is some natural crossover there.
Totally.
Whereas when I think about like working class United Kingdom, I think actually the UK, maybe if you're upper class, it's family, it's all about family name, right?
Yeah.
And where your status is, whereas like working class is more like, I'm going to get rid of you as soon as possible, and then good luck.
Yeah.
Off you go.
And because I spawned you, I'm not actually going to engage with you as a peer, because I don't know why. They don't know why.
Interesting.
But what it creates is like lots of individuals trying to go and do stuff, whereas like taking people on for the journey is easier, because like when one person's down, you know, that other people can get you up, and you're all aligned to a single outcome that you want to achieve.
Yeah, but I didn't think about it that way, but maybe that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, where I just enjoy working with friends and family, because maybe that's just ancestral.
I think it's a mindset thing too as well.
Yeah, it's like if we can all
rise together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to be at the top of the mountain with a champagne bottle and a single glass. I've got no one to chink it with.
Yeah, totally.
I need friends.
Totally. Okay, so the last question. What advice would you give to someone who's starting out to build their wealth journey?
Start. Yeah, goes back to what I was saying. So many people have got these brilliant ideas. Charlie just made a comment about it before. Ideas are worthless. Execution is everything. So irrespective of what your idea is, whether it's hospitality, start a cinema business, events business, start an amazing trading platform, whatever it is, just get going. And the next steps will unfold themselves. There's, even earlier I was talking about this business plan and 30, 60, 90-day strategy and my 5-year event horizon and where I want to get to. You're going to get knocked off course. It's going to be bumpy, but if you're not, I know 100%, if you haven't started, you're going to fail. Because you just haven't started. But if you start, there's a chance that you get to where you want to be. And so I just tell everybody, I'm like, if you truly want to do it, but you have to ask yourself, you really, really want to do it, then just start.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Love it.
Much appreciated.
Easy.